Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is John, call sign Kilo 5 Golf Tango, also known as the Dutch Ham, and today I'm going to explain a little bit about how to modify an HP server power supply to use with your ham radio gear. Let me show you which power supply I'm talking about. It's this type. It's an HP, the 1949-89 and then dash 002. But I will show you the details a little bit better a little bit later. Why use these power supplies? They're compact. The power output is pretty stable. Although maybe you might think, hey, nowadays all the ham radio equipment operates on 13.8 volts. How about that? Well, let me show you. Radio I have the trusty FT891. Here on the bottom they show the, let me otherwise enlarge it a little bit. The supply voltage 13.8 volt plus or minus 15%. When you calculate that, 15% of the 13.8 volt is a little over 2 volts. So the voltage range that this radio still can operate is between 11.7 volts and 15. Let me see, I wrote it down. 15.87 volts. So that's a pretty wide range. These power supplies internally on the 1949-89. There's a potentiometer that you can use to ramp up the voltage, and people were able to still operate the power supply with sufficient output on 12.8 volt. If you went over the 12.8 volt, then somehow some protection mechanism started, and then the output was shut down. So up to 12.8 volt, you were still able to draw at least 20 amps. Okay, where to get these power supplies? Now let me show you where I got them from. I got them from eBay. They're pretty cheap. Here there's one listed for $12 free shipping, $3, $9 shipping, so still $12. $16.59 free shipping, $16.99 free shipping, $4 and $13 shipping. So below $20 you should be able to obtain one of these power supplies. I'm not exactly sure how much I paid for them, or for him, because I only bought one. Let me show you the specifications of the power supply. Here's the sticker that's on the power supply. The model is the PS3381-1C1, part number 1949-89-002. It has an input voltage between 100 and 120 volts and 220 to 240 volts AC, frequency 50 or 60 hertz. The output volt of the output, plus 12 volt has an output of 32 amps, minus 12 volts 0.3 amps, and 5 volt auxiliary power 5 amps. So that's pretty decent for a power supply this size. And here it also says that it is between 8 or 4 amps input power. So I also found a website that is describing how to modify this power supply. He also talks about these obsolete server power modules can be bought from online dealers at very good prices due to massive replacement of all the network servers. Typical price for a unit are as low as $10, including shipping. Well, I guess the price went up a little bit. Most of them have multiple outputs, 12 volt, minus 12 volt, plus 5 volts. and some of them are capable of over 20 amps continuous output at 12 volts. This makes them suitable for powering the typical amateur HF rig, which requires 20 to 22 amps at full power output. He also says, yeah, they're not really that well adopted because, yeah, they don't work out of the box. So you have to work a little bit on it to adapt them to be able to use them. And the problem in that is that the documentation was very limited. So luckily there were some people that looked a little bit deeper into the server architecture and figured out how the power supplies were connected to the server. In this article he describes two types, the 1949-89, 400 watts, 232 amps maximum on the 12 volt line, and also the HP 280127. That's a little lighter, 325 watt power supply. It has a maximum of 26 amp on the 12 volt line. Further, he describes that power supplies were chosen because they have a separate 12 volt main output obtained from a separate dedicated converter, unlike with the ATX power supplies. At the end, he came up with the pinout for the 280127 power supply, and also for the pinout for the 1449-89 power supply. What he describes on the top side of the blade, the sides are ground and the center is plus 12 volt. I will show you that later because he didn't put a picture in the side. And the bottom of the blade is pictured here below. So what he describes here, that 1 and 13 are ground. Pin 3 is the minus 12 volt output. 4 is the plus 5 volt. 5 is the PS kill connection. And as a comment he put connect to ground. 2, 6, 7, 8 and 12 are not connected. 9 is the PS enable, and with a comment connect to ground. Pin 10, interlock of 1, connect to the plus 12 volts on the other side. And pin 11 is the interlock 2, connect to ground. So what we can see here is that we need to make 4 connections to get this power supply to work. So pin 5 to ground, pin 9 to ground, pin 11 to ground, and pin 10 we have to connect to the plus 12 volt on the other side. So that's pretty simple. And he says here also, if the modification is successful done, then the green LED on the front panel of the unit will light upon connection to the AC mains. The output voltage will be very close to 12 volt, 12.1 to 12.3 without a load. Regulation is outstanding with 100 to 150 millivolt drop in the output voltage between RX and TX at full power on a typical ham rig, so that's pretty decent. Voltage can be set as much as 12.8 volt from an internal trim pot, but this involves disassembling the power supply, and the experimenter should be aware that lethal voltages are present in the unit during operation, as well as for a short time after the unit has been disconnected from the mains. So do not attempt working on the unit while the mains is present. Do not connect the unit to an ungrounded power receptacle, and use a certified desktop computer type power cord. So this is the power supply I have. This is what I meant with the top side of the blade. The two sides are ground, and the center part here is the plus 12 volt. And then on the other side, I have a little picture with it. So let me hold on this side. So the picture is identical as the power supply. And then pin 1 and 13, what he described in the text, is also ground. And then the pin numbering from top to bottom, or right to left, is 1 to 13. Already prepared my output leads just to power pole connectors. And I also already created 4 wires, 3 black ones and a black one with a red sleeve. I didn't have a red wire, so I used a black wire and a little red heat shrink. And that's all what's needed to make the modification. So I will get started, and I will show you the result when it's done. And so this is after the first part. Let me get this one out of the way. I connected all the wires. Looks like here's some dirt. I will check before I connect power. So these are the black ones are the pins that have to be connected to ground, and the red one is going to be connected to the other side to the plus 12 volt. So far so good. So let's continue on the other side. So I'm done soldering. Let me show you. This pin 1 is pin 13. So pin 1 and 13 are ground. So this 1, 2, 3. Let me use this one. So this 1, 2, 3, 4 is the big one. And then 5 is connected to ground. Then we have 6, 7, 8, 9 is this black one. Is connected to ground. And then 10, 11 is also connected to ground. And pin 10 is going to the plus 12 volt on the other side. So that's this side, this wire, and the center is the plus 12 volt. Now I have my output. I use this ground for my negative side, and I soldered the red wire to the center. What he also describes in this web page is that for best results, the output of the power supply should be connected to a heavy-duty 12-volt power strip by soldering at least 6 20 gauge wires for the 280127 and at least 8 wires for the 194989 to each plus 12 volt and ground. So that was it. It's pretty simple. All was left to do. Oh, let me show you to open the power supply. This one, you guys can see it. This screw and the one on the other side, that one holds the ventilator, but to make it easier to get the big housing off is also to remove the ventilator. Otherwise you're kind of stuck removing it. But for the rest it's these two screws, the one here on the front, same on the other side. Here one on the front, and here two on the back, and then on the top, here on the back there's one screw, and here on the front near the handle is another screw. And if you remove those, and if you tilt the ventilator a little bit back, or just pull it out, then you can move the housing a little bit to the back and then lift it. There is some kind of plastic sheeting, some isolating sheeting next to it, and the potentiometers. The potentiometers are somewhere here. on this side. I already opened up the power supply and I already turned it up a little bit, so I just have to see what the output voltage is at this moment and see if it needs any adjustment. So let me get my voltmeter and hook this thing up. So we're back. As you can see, I have my multimeter hooked up, at least. I'm holding the multimeter pins inside the power poles. So let's see if we can let the magic smoke escape. No, that doesn't work. Let me do it like this. So I turn it down. It's now 11.75 volt. So I will have to open it up and adjust the potentiometer. So I will be back. And as you can hear, it does have a fan. It's pretty noisy. Okay, so I opened up the power supply and I turned the potentiometer to the left, so counterclockwise, and I set it now to 12.8 volt, so that should be enough. And let me show you if I can get the camera closer to the potentiometer that I did. Okay. Was this potentiometer that I turned, so this one. So that was pretty simple, so now let's test it out. What the guy did write on his website is that these server power supplies do create some, let me show you if I... like all, let me enlarge the bits. Here he says it. Like all switching power supplies, the HP server supplies generate some RF noise. The noise is most prominent in the immediate vicinity of the power supply and can be minimized by adequate shielding and grounding of the receiver. And by the use of ferrite snap-on or balloon chokes, and most importantly by using a coaxial or shielded bifluor antenna feeder. A long wire connected to a tuner inside the shack is the most likely to pick up the power supply noise. So this is something I have to try out. Here at home I do have not really the space to mount an antenna. Sometimes I use a small magnetic loop inside my living room, or I put it on the balcony. And in the past I have had a 20 meter end-fed half-wave hanging in front of the window of my bedroom. So I have to see if it picks up RF noise and how bad it will be. And here he mentions that the article was originally by AC8 Delta Papa, so Alpha Charlie 8 Delta Papa. Originally available at http ohiopacket.org. So I don't know if that site still exists. Let's check. Oh, come on. Copy. Paste. And go. And here it talks about the Dell Power Edge 9050 2950. I don't see his. He's not speaking about the HP power supplies here, so he's only talking about the Dell PowerEdge power supplies. The only thing is that they have a little different connector on the side. They have more like pins sticking out on the back side. They're a little bit newer, those power supplies, because the servers are newer, so most likely they So on that website, ohiopacket.org, you can find how to modify a Dell 2950 or 1950 power supply. So that was it for this time. I hope you enjoyed it. It is pretty simple. You only have to connect to solder 4 wires to enable the power supply. And indeed, the green LED is lit on the other side. Yeah, so that was it. Hope you enjoy it. Please like and subscribe, and see you the next time.